Okay, I'm sharing my screen. Do you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Yep, it's coming up.
Okay.
Yep.
So I'm going to start the meeting, just like I had said, for the sake of time, because we have a lot to talk about today. And, you know, as Mike and I have learned, it's not necessarily the best thing to spend 3 hours online. So, and, you know, Jinmei and I miss getting you guys the coffee and fruit and Entenmann's. So, so we want to make sure that we kind of get through everything that we need to, and then have time for the team to give input on a couple things we're going to talk about today. So here's our agenda for today. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, I just got a thing, Louis, that said my network showing poor quality. I don't know why, but anyway. Yeah, so if anything changes, Louis, text me because I have my phone in front of me, so you can let me know.
Okay.
Here's the agenda for today. I'm going to put up the minutes in just 1 second, but before we do that, I'm going to just add something to the agenda. I want to spend some time talking about what the chancellor has announced just in terms of potential models for September. So, but before I do that, let me put the minutes up. I emailed to everyone a copy of the minutes, but I'm going to flash them up here for you guys to read. However, you can use your own copy should you choose. I'm just going to go through it and then ask for a motion to approve. Jinmei.
Yeah.
You text Esther and see, ask her to email, text Charlene, see if she's coming on the call. I think Charlene might think it starts at 10.
All right, I'll do that.
Thank you.
Then now Esther gonna call Charlene right now. She's gonna join us right after the phone call.
Okay. So I just want to see how many members that we have on here. So we have Andre, Christine, Joe, me, Laura. I'm trying, is there anybody else on here that's a member?
Me.
Christine, right? Is that, did you say
Mary.
you?
Mary.
Okay, I'm sorry, yes, Mary, yes. Okay, so we can approve the minutes. Okay.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, so Christine motioned and Mary second. Okay, so thank you guys. So I will come out of this. And I'm going to unshare my screen, Mike, so then you can take over when we start. So, so one of the things that I think is really important that we start the conversation, because I think a lot of people are going to come to us and ask us questions over the next few weeks and over the summer about what planning for September would look like. You know, I want to say during this crisis, I think it's important that we all know that nothing we talk about today is absolute, right? Because something can change over the summer. They could come out with this great and wonderful vaccine that works, and then, you know, everything will be back to normal. But what we do know is that there are concerns around social distancing guidelines that are coming out. And there are also concerns regarding a second wave that they feel, if it's going to occur, may not necessarily happen now, but could happen during flu season. And therefore, they're talking about they don't want to get into situations where they have to, you know, open it, completely shutter certain buildings. So right now, they're asking to put in place planning opportunities for schools for September to open with social distancing guidelines in place. Now, once again, I'll be very clear. This could change at any minute, but as of today, the plan is, in order to have social distancing in place, it is going to mean somewhat of a reduction of the number of students that can enter a building and be in a classroom at the same time. So the one thing that I want to say to everybody is, so if we do have to open in the way that they're asking us to plan for today, there is going to be a significantly reduced number of students in the building at the same time. So it's going to look like a blend of distance learning that we have right now and in-school learning. Now, the reason that we're talking about that as a community, and I want to actually let you know what we're guiding principals through. The reason we're talking about that is because if you're going to do this blended model, there's going to have to be discussions and time to plan about what good instruction should look like. We know in March when we all had to leave, it wasn't the best of circumstances, but our teachers and building leaders did a fabulous job in getting everyone online and creating Google platforms. We know that if we had time to really put our full faith effort and discussion and collaborate and do all different types of training, it may have looked different, but now we want to spend some time doing that in the best way possible until this crisis is over, and hopefully it ends sooner rather than later. So with that discussion, we know, and I don't know how many of you are on Facebook, but I'm a parent on Facebook. Apparently there is this huge movement of parents that want to put an end to virtual learning and have their kids back in school in September. And we could talk about that also, but I want to start by saying, here's what Dr. Mike and I are doing that I want the DLT to know. So there is a survey on every school website called the PASS survey. And what you do is you log into the school website, you go under reports, and I'll actually show it to you because I could share my screen. Hold on. So let's do,
They can get it right from the main page too, right there, Danielle, on top.
yeah, right? To find a school.
The picture, no, just go up to, you talk about the return to school survey? Just from the main site, if you go up to the top.
All right.
And then
Up
click
here?
on that young man right there. You can click on return to school. Yeah. And then go down a little bit. It tells you about the survey.
Right.
And then
So as you know, I know all of you that are parents have received this survey. This is a survey that Central has sent out that asks questions just around both parent and student information and feelings about different models and just different questions about returning to school, health and safety wise, classroom spacing, social distancing, curriculum, all of that stuff is on the survey. So we're encouraging everyone to take that survey because very similar to school surveys, we are going to use this as part of our planning.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now,
and the deadline is June 22nd. And again,
Yeah, I don't think the PASS one's there though, Danielle.
what?
The PASS was there too?
Oh, it was? Damn it.
No, that's what I'm saying. I don't think it was.
No. Ugh. Okay, hold on.
What happened?
No, that's why I was going into Find a School down there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can tell you that some people were having difficulties. You might want to remind people that they should do it from their computer, not their phones. I had a lot. Yeah, I had a lot of people, and I'm like, well, try it from your computer, because I guess on the phones, it doesn't register the right way. It comes up saying wrong email address or something was wrong, or school was wrong. I forget what they were telling me.
All right, so Mary, do you mind if we read yours?
No, you can use 209.
Okay. Doesn't this show you how I need a new computer here? All right, so you go to reports,
Doing fine.
facilities.
Yep.
And you see where it says principal annual space survey.
Open. PDF. You can allow it.
Oh no, I hate this. That's why I like being at work. Everything just flashes up so quickly. Yeah, Gus, see, now I know how you feel. There we go. Okay. So what this survey lists is every room at PS 209. Okay.
Can you zoom in a little bit? Make it bigger.
I don't know how to do that.
On top. Oh, on top, click fit to page.
Okay.
Oh, no, that didn't work. Made it smaller. Oh, there you go. Perfect.
Okay, so you see it lists every room, what the function of that room is. So if you go into 209, not now, but if you were in there in February, 103 would be a kindergarten space. 105 would be a first grade space. So every year, principals fill out these past surveys, which are kept as documentations of utilization of buildings. Now, what we are asking principals to look at, and I'm going to be addressing this today at the principals meeting, is room square footage, right? Because the recommended pupil per square foot is 65 square feet. So anybody that does math quick in their head or has a calculator, because 672 divided by 65 is how many people?
10.
10. So you are in room 101. Dr. McDonald could have 9 students and 1 staff member at one time. And then if you go in to look at the kindergarten class in room 106, which we're going to talk about this in a second, if you have 13, 16, how many is that, Mike?
$20.
20. So in room 106, technically, under these social distancing guidelines, there can be 19 students and 1 teacher, 18 students and 2 adults, however that is. Now, what we've learned during this time is that many of these past surveys are not correct. And so what we are going to ask our principals to do this week is to meet with their custodians and have them verify square footage. With that, then the principal is going to work with her planning team to create models that would best accommodate the needs of their community, and then work with SLT, work with staff members, and work with the parent community at large to get feedback as to which model, if social distancing is required in September, would best meet the needs of students and their families and staff members. So that is the process and where we are right now, just in terms of planning for September, should social distancing be necessary and required. As of right now, I know that many of you have heard the mayor and the chancellor both say that given the current data and information, most likely we will be in that place in September. So as the superintendent, I am, I'm not going to take on the whole movement of families because I know that Long Island has attached to it. And, I just want to let everyone know that Long Island does not really ask questions the way they should. They all just join, and so that's what's happening on Facebook. And myself as having this information and knowledge, and that's why I think it's very important that I have these conversations with you, that principals have these conversations with SLTs, their staff, as well as the community. So, and not every parent is going to get all of their needs met, but we want people to know that they do have a voice and they do have a say. And most likely it will be what the majority of the needs are and what best fits just in terms of how to organize the schedule. So these parents that are saying, forget it, let's just have everybody come back, you know, I understand the frustration. You guys have heard me complain about my own kids since March, but there are certain scenarios that I do believe we need to take into consideration. So for example, Israel, they were 3 weeks behind us, right? Their outbreak was in February. Ours started in March. They opened up their schools in May. And by the beginning of June, we're talking about closing them again because they were having a lot of upticks in coronavirus. We know that in school settings, very similar to other types of large group settings, kids are on top of each other all the time. And realistically, we cannot social distance safely by having all kids in the building. So if that is necessary, I want to say that over and over and over again, because if something changes tomorrow and all of a sudden coronavirus is gone, we're going to open, right? And our principals in District 25 are amazing. And although it would be hard, I know that they would tirelessly work to make sure that that will happen. But at the same time, you know, when I was interviewing to be an assistant principal in District 25, back then you had to interview with the district office. And when I was practicing, every single administrator that I had worked with to practice said the same thing to me. Anything that happens in education that they ask you, safety is always first. The health and wellness of students is always first, because if you do not have that, learning cannot happen. So I want the community to know that we are willing and ready and able to have these discussions and hear how you feel and what you think, but it is under the understanding and with the understanding that safety of staff and students and families has to come first. Because if we open a school full-fledged and we have to close it 2 months later, then you're not getting anything that, you know, these parents wanted. So, so we are at the very beginnings of these conversations. I don't want anyone on the DLT, parents, CSA, UFT to think that you know, this is happening behind the scenes, right? This is happening, you know, in the way Mike and I just we met with some of our principals that have very large buildings and some of our principals that have shared spaces on Friday, and this all unraveled during those meetings. So so I want everyone to know that we are in conversations just about what is possible. So I just wanted to open up the meeting right now to any kind of questions, or if there's anybody that wanted to voice their feelings about this matter.
I have a question.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Lamar.
Hi, everybody. Good morning, by the way. So with regards to the square footage per room, per person in that arrangement, are the principals aware that, you know, they should be working with chapter leaders to just have an idea or a conversation of what's going on and keeping each other up to speed and up to date with whatever changes come about with setting up the rooms and housing students?
Yes. So principals are aware in working with all constituencies, including their chapter leaders, DC 37, just around what the ask of is and the guidelines that are coming down to the Department of Health, which is, and I think the DOE is following those guidelines with a little extra square footage, but it is that standard 65 square feet per pupil per adult. Now, the one thing that I do know that has been circulating out there and until further notice is not permitted is that people were talking about doing building walkthroughs. As of right now, there are clear guidelines as to why and how and the different types of events that would allow people in the building, and doing building walkthroughs for this purpose is not one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that people may ask to do that. Those are going to be denied because as of right now, Central is denying that. So that is not your principal trying to hide anything from you. But if you're going to grant one person an opportunity to do a walkthrough with you, you have to grant a lot of people to do have that opportunity. So if it's, it can't just be a chapter leader, because then the SLP might ask to do that. And now you're talking about 11 to 15 people. So as of right now, building walkthroughs for this purpose are not permissible. But what we are asking our principals to do is to have the custodians verify the square footage on the path survey, and we will share the results of that. So I spoke to principals this morning who already asked their custodian to do that, and the results were they could fit 2 to 3 more people in a classroom based on that, because the square footage was wrong. So if you look at Dr. McDonald's, what I had, I know I'm not sharing my screen anymore, but her standard room is 672 square feet. That may have changed over the years. She may have had construction or certain things done, or maybe although they had originally planned for 672 square feet, when they built certain rooms, there was more. So we're asking the custodians to remeasure. We just wanted the DLT to know that that's the process that we're going through, so you can tell your constituencies, ask your principal about the pass. Let's talk about it from there. How many kids can fit in a classroom? What are we looking at in terms of auditorium space? How will auditorium space be utilized? All of those things are up for discussion at the local level, at the school level, because we want to create a model that best fits the needs of our students and that works for everyone involved in terms of adults working for children. So Christine, I know you had a question.
Sorry, I was on multitasking. No, I just wanted to say, I know that I had sent a lot of questions to FACE that I was getting from parents, but one of the big things that parents are saying is that, I know one of the ideas was a blended learning plan they were talking about, and a lot of parents are very upset because they feel in the lower grades, they're actually doing the teaching. Teachers are just uploading like worksheets. And I know it's not across the board with all schools, and I don't know because I'm not in elementary school, so I only know what my friends and neighbors are complaining about. They're saying teachers are uploading like worksheets and stuff, and then they have to sit there and be the teacher.
So one of the things that we've talked about at the district level and with principals is we know that although distance learning is difficult for everyone, I mean, I'll say it, I have high schoolers and I want to, go crazy. We do know that in the early childhood levels, there is this gap and lag because students, our youngest learners have difficulty manipulating the technology, and therefore their parents need to do a lot more work with them. So that being taken into consideration is something that can be discussed at the local level should families and teachers agree to that. So it may be, if a school agrees, and this is the type of model that I'm talking about, if a school agrees that early childhood may be in school a little bit more time than the upper grades, that is something that a school has every right to organize and determine together. It cannot be done unilaterally, right? But like, for example, my town was thinking that they were going to put their K-5 in all the schools and leave the middle and high school kids home. And I was like, absolutely not. My kid is going to school, at least some days. So that's where we're saying we do have to have those discussions at the local level, because Central's not going to stop a school that says, listen, we want our early childhood kids in school at minimum 2 weeks while everyone else is on distancing. And then the rest will go, intermittently, across the month. They're not going to stop you guys from doing that. So there can absolutely be discussions at that level. But Christine, I think the concerns, and look, there could be schools in isolation putting up worksheets. I mean, that's not something that I want to hear, but the concern really is even our most amazing Google Classrooms in the early childhood level, students need parent support in manipulating and managing that. And that's,
And I get that. I mean, I get that, but I think, and it's not anything. Look, I've been in all the meetings and I understand and I get it. But as parents are going to start to go back to work, if the kids are going to be at home doing, even if it's like, 3 days a week at home and 2 days in school, however they work it, it's going to be really difficult for the kids to really learn. I mean, because if the parent's not there, and that goes across the board, even with the older kids, because I mean, my struggles. I have a high school and I have a middle school. And if I don't stand over them going, do your work, get it done, let's go, catch up on your missing stuff, they would off be, lollygagging, spending the day playing Fortnite or soccer. So I just think that DOE, and I know, oh, sorry, the dog just touched the computer, sorry. I know that DOE really, I hope that DOE is really taking all these, and I sent, my contacts, I sent them all the questions and concerns, but they really need, it's a lot of things have to be considered before they say, let's go back to school.
correct, yes. And that's where I'm saying there's two things. So we are saying that, and I'm speaking to you as from the parent voice, parents have a voice as part of this conversation. But the fact has to be also with that we're having this discussion because it may be a reality. And right now it's our current reality. So the conversation can't be, we want to go back full time. Everybody wants to go back full time. I want to go back full time. Right? Nobody's saying we're going to create a new normal where, this distance learning thing is going to continue. If parents want to voice that, absolutely voice that. Just be like, when this is gone, we don't want you to think that our kids can learn at home because that doesn't work. And I will be marching right with you as a parent.
Can I make a comment?
Go ahead.
So I think it's fair to say, I mean, and everyone that I spoke to, everyone across the board is frustrated and not happy with the remote learning as the sole means of education, even in September. So, I mean, they're willing to work it out with, reduced classroom size, but we need to get our students in school. We need to get them, it's not, I mean, for some people it works, but generally, everyone that I spoke to, whether their student is doing well or not, does not like the remote learning as the sole means of education, especially in September. And people are getting frustrated and they don't even care anymore. They're throwing in the towel. Maybe they're done, So I think, that has to be considered as well.
Yeah, and you're right. And there are, Joe, also, and I know that a survey went out from Bell Academy. Did you see it? Where they asked for different models. I also, as part of that survey, there are some families, and I don't know if you read, there was an article in the Post, and it was from one of our schools, families from one of our schools was in it, basically saying that they're not sending their kids back to school unless there is a vaccine. So there are some families who, although distance learning may not be their ultimate choice, it has nothing to do with what any of us say. Until there's a vaccine, they're not sending their child back to school. So I think schools are trying to gather that as well, because that could support some of the social distancing decisions that are made as well. So if you have, 30 kids in a grade whose parents are going to be remote learning the entire time, then that allows other families and, and schools to kind of open up their classrooms to more students should the need arise.
Understood, but I think it's a very small number. I mean, that's my opinion.
I think it's a larger number than, hi, everyone. Charlene, good morning.
Hey,
I think
Charlene.
it's a larger number because on the calls that I've been on the last 2 weeks, a lot of parents are concerned. And I think the learning right now is different depending on the school. Some schools are actually teaching remotely and others are just assigning stuff and giving you, what do they call it? The help room or something like that, I was told. Okay. So it depends. But as a parent of a high schooler, I can't stand standing over him all the time. However, my child's health and safety is paramount to anything else.
Yep.
So even
It's
if
amazing you're right, Charlene. It's amazing the spectrum of opinions that parents have.
yeah,
And that's what Daniel was saying. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
and also I don't want him on public transportation. You can open up
Big
school
one.
part-time if you want to, but he takes 2 buses. I don't want him on 2 buses.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's a concern of a lot of, especially the high school parents. That is our biggest concern. Well, not our biggest, but that's one of the main concerns.
And then as a high school and a middle school parent, and this is just a personal thing, the social distancing, how are you going to keep the high school kids from, especially the boys and the girls? You know, that's a very touchy-feely age. So they see, I mean, really, Charlene, you see, you go over and you hug your friend, and you know, how are you gonna? Is there gonna be like hug police in the school?
That's what I'm trying to
I
figure
mean,
out.
look, but that's also where we rely on, families as well to basically say, and you're going to get that. I get that with my own. I social distance my children. Other families do not, and because of that, their children don't know how to social distance. They're still trying to walk over to my kid and hug, and my daughter's like, whoa, so that's why a lot of these conversations do need to happen at the local level with policies to guide that work, right? So when we say things like, we're talking about 65 square foot per person, in terms of spacing, and we're going to honor that. What that looks like in each individual school is a conversation. And then the commitment to social distancing, Christine, has to come from everyone, not just the dean and the hallway, right? And we're going to try to do as minimal as possible. But
I just think of like whenever I walk into the high school, I always see the girls hanging all over the boys, and I'm thinking, how is that going to work? Like, I can just imagine.
We're going to have social distancing detention, right? Like that person did not social distance. No, and that's not what we want to do, because when you think about it, this is a social responsibility, right? So it's like, if you're going into a building, you need to understand the guidelines of social distancing. And I think the schools should be doing that, not just for the adults, but also for children, to say, like, we want this to work. We want to be able to come back to school. We will not be able to do that if you don't work with us to follow social distancing guidelines, and that means we shouldn't have to tell you not to hang on each other, because if you're hanging on each other, then you are potentially spreading the disease. The mask, only helps so much. So the school will intend to have those conversations, but it's also something that families really have to say to their kids, even if you haven't taught them social distancing guidelines in the past. Now it's like, when you go to school, I need to talk to you about what social distancing will look like. So, but what I want to reiterate to all of you is where we are just in terms of policies and recommended guidelines around what this should look like, and then conversations at the school level. There have been models that the DOE has shown. Have you guys seen any of them? Mike, is there a way while I'm speaking you can find some of those models and just put it up on the screen?
Sure.
So Mike will put them up. These are recommended models. They're not absolute, but what I did tell my principals, or what I'm going to tell my principals at 12 today, is if you come up with a model that is not similar to the models we're about to show you, then we need to have that vetted through Central. But by all means, schools need to come to the table virtually and engage in conversations about, if we have to do this in September, what is possible, what is reasonable, with the understanding that we all don't want to do this, And like what Charlene said, even if these parents that are going to protest get their way, maybe people like Charlene wouldn't send their kids back to school right away. Maybe there would be people that still want, to maintain social distancing, because just because parents want their kids back in school full time doesn't mean that it's safe, so.
And also, they don't listen. The smaller ones and the bigger ones. Okay, we can say, all right, do this, that, don't touch, use your hand sanitizer, keep your mask on, don't be close to anyone. And they're going to go do it anyway because they're kids. They don't listen. None of them
But
do.
it-
We all know we can tell our kids all the right things and they're going to do whatever they want to do
Correct.
because
But
we're
it
not
doesn't
around.
just apply. It doesn't just apply to schools. It applies the moment you send your kid out the door, wherever he or she goes. That's a responsibility that parents have to take also the minute they let their kids out, anywhere, not just school.
I agree, Joe.
Yep. All right, so are there any other questions while Mike's looking for that model?
Mike, you need me to get it?
Yeah, I don't know why I can't find the PowerPoint, Louis.
Okay, hold
I'm
on.
sorry, Gus, what'd you say?
I have a question about Linden Place, because your office is there, so is mine. Have we been told anything about Linden Place?
No, not yet. But I do know that the same kind of guidelines will most likely apply to Linden Place. Then there is also an additional layer that I want people to know for adults, that we don't know absolutely what that will look like, but there would be opportunities for adults to apply to continue to work from home based on certain criteria that we don't know yet, right? So we're waiting for that, but what principals are being told is to plan for a maximum right now of 20% of your staff working from home. But we don't know what that looks like. And not every school might have that. Some schools might, some schools might not. We kind of spoke about what if you have more than 20%. So those are all questions that will come to the table and discuss once we do get those guidelines. But those guidelines are out there and they're being created as we speak. But principals have been told to plan to not start with full staff. Okay, so these are the different options. If you, and I know, Joe, you and Laura, I think you nodded that there was a survey that was distributed from Bell Academy because we started working with them as a shared space. The models that they presented to you came from this. And you'll recognize them. So these are just options. It is not an absolute. And this is a starting place for our principals to engage in conversations. So if you look, option 1 is it's alternating days, where
the school population is broken into 2 groups, Group A and Group B. And then depending on the day of the week, that's the group that comes into school in person or in remote learning.
Option 2 is a week on, week off for Group 1 and Group 2, Group A and Group B. And option 3 is very similar to option 1, except
there's 3 groups of students.
Students come in 2 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
And then Fridays are for select students, struggling learners, Ls, SWDs. You could have like an enrichment Friday where your advanced learners come in, but every student is in school 2 days a week. Group A is sort of like a 3-2 model rotating. Group B is everyone goes in 2 days a week and Friday is select for certain students. And then Group C is completely remote learning if you have all of those students. There are some schools who are trying their best to keep it in 2 groups, but because of their population may have to go to 3 groups in the option 1 or 2 model.
Can I add or ask you something? Because when I was looking at it, can you hear me? Can I talk?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I thought, maybe it would have been a better way to present it. 3 groups, Group A, Group B, and Group C. Group C being those parents that don't want their children at school, right? So they will stay at home at their selection, because what happens if the parent says, look, I am not sending, like Charlene, right? If she believes I'm not sending my kids to school, so you're not giving them any options. So,
Joe, that option, Joe,
you can add Group C
on the bottom.
Right.
That's the Group C on the bottom?
Group C on the bottom says remote learning is basically every day.
Groups.
But
I see.
yes,
Okay.
But
But
Joe,
you
I
could
do
technically
want
add
to
group
say
C
this,
to
Right,
any of
I
these models.
right, but I do want to say this.
Mm.
There were some people that I spoke to that saw Group C as a group that had to stay home. They were assigned to stay home.
Right. This is
So that is really where parent voice has to come in, and where I said to principals, that model where children are assigned to stay home is an absolute last resort. There is absolutely nothing that can be done, because I don't want children who don't want to stay home to be forced to stay home. So I wanted to bring that up there, that I've said that as a superintendent. A Group C model where a school assigns kids to stay home, just a random assignment, is an absolute last resort model. But from who we've spoken with, we've been able to see even our most struggling schools make it reasonable, where all kids would have an opportunity, should they choose to attend the brick and mortar building. It might not be any of these models. Let's just say they have to do Group A, Group B, Group C. So it would be less time. But once again, this is where we talk about the power of decision making. When you talk about a new normal, we're reconfiguring what schools should look like, and all constituents on an SLT or parent leaders should be reaching out to their school community to see what they would want, because this is really a voice. This is, historically a principal controls the program, and there are ways to argue a program. Let's just say there's the grievance process for certain unions, but this is not the case in this situation. The principal is still going to control the program, but the configuration of school, absolutely, we're opening it up that everyone has a voice, and they should take that voice, not after the fact, not in September when the school is programmed. So now's the time to do that. And I think that's why we can't stress enough to everyone to make sure that you have a seat at the table and a voice. Now, but parents should know, if you have concerns, call your SLT, call, members, call your PTA, call whoever you want to make sure you have that voice. So we're putting that out there to everyone, that people should have a voice and a seat at the table to engage in this discussion. Okay, any other questions? All righty, so Gus, did you want to go next?
Sure.
And then Mike, you can close it out for us.
Great. Thank you, everybody. I hope you can hear me. I've had issues with the sound on the computer, but hopefully I won't, have that problem. The DCP for this academic year was more or less finalized last meeting, and I understand that we have a active website in District 25. They may post it. No decision has been made, so don't put it on the minutes. My charge was just to find out if your website is active, and I believe it is. Whether that might be a place to post it in the future. But those have been finalized. I want to commend everyone for the work that they did throughout the year. It's a good document reflective of all of your work. And I especially want to thank the district team for their editing. And as usual, once we finish one document, we begin working on the other. And I don't expect the template to change at all. I think we'll be using the same template. So a lot of the information will transfer over. And Mike did send out draft goals for next academic year, which I believe he's going to go over. And so District 25 is well on its way, looking towards the new district plan for the future. Obviously, there are a lot of unknowns. I had on my agenda item remote learning, and I knew that it was going to be part of a wider discussion. So all of these unknowns, they will obviously affect both district DCEs and school CEs. So any questions on the DCE folks before I move on to CEs? No? Everybody can hear me, right?
Yeah, Gus.
Okay.
Yes.
Wait. Okay. Good. Good. Okay. On the CEPs, you know that all of District 25 schools, elementary and middle schools, are in good standing. So the deadline for those schools has been moved blessedly to July 24th. And what they're doing is they're working on their goals. As usual, as we do every year, there are draft goals by the end of academic year looking to next year. And they are going to be aligned to the budget. And the chancellor spoke about the budget on the chancellor's call, and the budget's been delayed. They're waiting. Danielle might have some things like that. They're waiting to see whether any money is going to be forthcoming from Washington. And that's part of the reason for the delay. So because of the budgetary piece, my understanding is that's the main reason why they delayed the usual attestation that principals do in the usual way in IVAN on the budget and goal alignment. Now, the good news is that there is a new tool that my office created called the Smart Goals Builder that is available now on IVAN. If you haven't looked at it, please do for the students that you have access to. It is a very easy to use, and I have I believe I sent it out, a PowerPoint on how to use it. But basically, it's squares, tiles. When you go on, it tells you exactly how many areas of presentation every student is required. Click on the tile. It asks you some questions. Fill in the information, and based on the information you fill out, it provides which is edit that. I've got for
Gus, you're going in and out a little bit.
Yeah, Gus, we're losing you.
Okay, I'll get closer. Unfortunately, I'll turn the camera off so you don't have to look at my face staring at you. Okay, can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. I have to sort of sit right next to the mic on the screen. So that is the 24th of July is the new deadline, and then after the schools attest, then the superintendents will and the district teams and the borough team will give feedback on the goals, and then they will certify, as is done every year. Right now, there is no template for good standing schools. I know that one is in the works. Right now, it looks like it's going to be a offline document, but it may be online by September, depending on how iPlan works out. And it will not be like it was last year with all of those drop downs and complex technology issues. Everything is being simplified. One of the prototypes that we have right now are for schools that are not in good standing, and in the school that you're familiar with is Flushing High School, which is TSI in District 25. A SIM, Dan Atkins, is working with that school at the moment. But I have two schools that you may not be familiar with in District 25 that are also TSI, but they belong to other superintendencies, 25Q263 and 25Q540. I'm working with those schools on their CPs, and they have what's called a snapshot, which is a Word document template, and I've been working with them on their CPs. So they still use the builder, but they also have to submit, they have a different deadline date, their deadline date is earlier. It is on the 17th of the, no, the 12th. The 12th that they have to submit their document. But that's not a concern for your schools. It's only Flushing that has that deadline for the document on the 12th. So principals should have gone on. I've been getting telephone calls and emails from lots of principals about their goals and the alignment and so on. Right now, when you go on to iPlan, what you can see is you can see that Smart Goals Builder, and you can see the LAP addendum. There is nothing else there. People keep looking for their old CPs, and the old CPs are not currently available. Ones that were done, with those drop downs from last year. They're working on getting them up. I don't have a timeline for when they're going to be available, but it underlines, many of you know me for a long time and know how old-fashioned I am. What I always say to principals and schools, if it's important to you, either print it out and put it in a file, or see if you could download it on a thumb drive, because technology, based on my experience, sometimes presents some challenges. I'm an old proposal writer, and very often I've worked many, many hours on a proposal, and then a virus comes in and compromises the document, something else happens. So I learned from bitter experience to have backups. So, but I understand there were lots of issues with downloading and printing last year. So some of those documents were not as readily available as they could have been, but we're hoping to get them back up. So that's where CEPs are. I also sent the superintendent a PowerPoint on SLT development in this remote learning environment with SLTs, informing your SLT about drafting the goals, etc. So there are a number of resources that are available to help schools and principals. And as I always say to everyone, I'm available 24/7. Everybody, has my email address. I also make my BlackBerry, my personal cell, and now my landline available to everybody. So, and I've been getting calls about various issues. So, and everybody should look at their data. They need to go on the United City Schools site and download their accountability. They need to know if they have any level ones. And if I remember correctly, and I know that Mike is a big expert on this, there are a number of schools that have level ones in chronic absenteeism. So a number of schools are required to do a chronic absenteeism goal because of those level ones. But every principal in every school and every SLT should take a look at that blessedly friendly, easy to use and understand accountability sheet that can be gotten from the tool site and see whether they have any level ones for any sub, because those level ones then have to be addressed. The good news is that even if you don't look it up, the tiles, the squares in the Smart Goals Builder will say required chronic absenteeism. So when you look at what you're required to do in the builder, it tells you. So there's no guesswork. If it says required, then you have to do it. It's required. So that's, I think, all I have to say about the CEP. Obviously, there are lots of challenges going forward, and everybody is always flexible and devoted to putting together the best and effective academic plan they can, and going forward. forward. I'm sure all the schools will rise to the occasion. You also always have a significant number of recognition schools. That's what they're calling reward schools now. So I think that in a previous meeting we talked about. So you're always doing well. You're always at the top of the city, and you'll continue to do well. Let's see. We talked about remote learning. So I don't think I have any other agenda item other than we also need to get together on our next meeting. I don't know whether you're going to meet over the summer or not. Obviously, in the past we haven't, but you may decide otherwise this year. Going forward, then we will need the date for the next DLT meeting. Any questions, folks? Did everybody hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Yep. So, so thank you, Gus. You know, that is a question that I wanted to put out there. Historically, our DLT does not meet in the summer. I do know that there are DLTs that do meet in the summer. You know, myself, Dr. Mike, Dr. Werner, Dr. McDonald, and I don't know about any other constituencies, but we do work in the summer. So I wanted to kind of put it out there to see if you wanted to organize July and August meeting dates. And if not, because of the current state and the timeliness of changes that do need to be made to our schools, if we don't want to meet in the summer, if everyone would be flexible to me calling a meeting should the need arise. So I wanted to put that out there for discussion.
I'm open either way. I can go, you know.
I'm with Joe. Whatever Joe says, I do.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
Lamar?
I'm open. I'm open to it. Yes.
Andre?
I'm sorry, Danielle, I didn't hear you.
Andre, what is your opinion about having meetings in July and August?
July is fine. August, I'll be off.
Okay, so do you maybe want to do that? We can arrange for a July meeting, and then if August would just be if necessary?
Sure, that's fine.
Okay, so is everybody in agreement to that?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Anybody opposed to that?
Yes. No.
Okay, so can we just very quickly plan a July meeting? Let's put a date on the calendar so we can all right, let's see what we got here. So any principals taking vacation the week of July 13th?
Nope.
So
Not
do
me.
you want to do Monday, July 13th at 9:30?
That works for me.
Works for me.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect.
Fine for me.
Can we do a little bit later than 9:30? If that, I mean,
Yeah, I'm okay.
I know I'm a
10:30?
Can we, 10:30 would be better for me just because I have to shuffle back and forth and I have to, yeah, 10:30 would be better.
Okay, the only thing I would have to say is like we have to be off by 12 because we have a 12:30 principal meeting on Mondays. So we would do 10:30 to 12 o'clock. How's that? Everybody okay?
Mm-hmm.
That's fine with me.
Okay, great.
Good for me too.
All right, so great. Thanks, everyone. So our DLT meeting will be July 13th from 10:30 till the latest 12 o'clock. And then, so I'll be sending a reminder to all of us. And then August will only be as needed. If there's any kind of pending, you know, issues about the opening of school that we would need to meet. Okay, perfect. Thanks. Thanks, everyone. All right, so we have 2 more things left on the agenda. Dr. Mike is going to do a presentation for us, and then Dr. Werner will give us an update on high schools, and then we'll open it up to any new business. But one of the things that I do want to say is I want to thank those of you that did give feedback on our draft goals. You will see some of the modifications that we made are reflective of some of the statements and questions that Laura and Joe asked. So thank you guys for that, and continue to follow that process. Really, it kind of allows Mike and I to do different levels of thinking, and so we just wanted to say thank you and encourage you guys to give us feedback as we continue to frame our goals. The other piece that Mike is going to talk to you about is we had a meeting on Friday with the Office of Equity and Access. And some of our conversations were about, we wanted to deepen the work that we are doing around equity in our district. Right now, our focus as an equity team is centered on disproportionality in a lot of different areas for our Black and Brown students, in special education referrals, in access to higher level coursework, in disproportionality of suspensions in our middle, and for the purposes of the DLT for high schools. So we've been really working through that this year. And you saw that reflected in our goals and some of the professional learning that we've been putting out to teachers. The implicit bias work that is happening throughout our district is due to our relationship with the Office of Equity and Access. But taken into consideration some of the events that have occurred over the past few weeks, and questions and comments that have come to us from the community, from our building leaders, from teachers, from school aides, from parent coordinators, we really wanted to explore deepening our understanding and our beliefs and expectation around equity and social justice, and what that can and should look like for us as a district. And in individual schools. You know, we always say that school is a representation of society and the world, and if we don't talk about institutionalized racism and implicit bias and the things that are occurring, none of that will change in our system and in our country. So we have just started the conversation. As we progress in it, we are going to loop in the DLT for your feedback and support in this work. But the first place that they started with us, and we're not going to get in granular around equity so much today, but just overall looking at our mission and vision statements, which we have not done as a DLT in a while. I mean, we look at it, we read it, but we don't talk about it. So Dr. Mike is going to lead us through an activity where we're going to spend some time doing that. Through our work with them, we saw that the need to clearly define some of the things that we say, and also that our mission statement is very wordy and does not need to be that lengthy, and maybe we can kind of contextualize that in lesser words. So Dr. Mike,
Yes.
thank you.
I am here. Okay, guys. So I put in the chat the Pear Deck slides, and as Danielle mentioned, you'll notice that when we get to the goals part that a number of them have been adjusted. Excuse me, in large part due to the feedback that we received from you guys, and from our principals and APs. So I encourage you to please open up the Pear Deck as we're going through it, and there'll be a couple of other spots for you to include some more information around what you think, especially about the revisions that we've made, and we'll talk about why we made some of those adjustments to these draft goals, so that we can. Is that an echo or is that?
No, that's me. I was getting ready to say that you probably posted that when I wasn't on yet. I came on late. Can you post it again? Because I don't see it in the chat. Thank you.
Sure.
And the echo is I'm on 2 calls at the same time.
Okay. I wasn't sure if it was me or not. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen just so you guys can see it from my computer. And what we're going to do, we're going to take a look at our district vision, the strong roots, strong schools. The questions that we're going to have is, what does it say? And what does it say to you? And what are we doing to achieve this vision? We'll quickly go through our district mission statement. Does our vision align with our mission is going to be a question that we ask. And then we're going to quickly go through our goals and then go through a very brief, here's what, so what, now what at the end. So as Danielle mentioned, going through this process, it was quite interesting for us to kind of raise this question. So we say strong roots, strong schools, grow deep, stand tall, growing together for our children's future. But, what does that mean for all of us as a district community? So here is the question that we have for you. D25 vision, what does our strong roots, strong schools vision say to you? So when you hear that, what does it mean for you as a parent? What does it mean for you as a principal? What does it mean for you, as a DC 37 rep, U of T chapter district rep, and so on? And, what are we doing to meet the expectations of this vision? So those two questions really important. When you see that and hear that, what does it say to you about our district as a whole? And thinking about it through the lens of our schools as well. So those two questions would be great to get some of your thoughts. So if you can take the next just 2 to 3 minutes, things that you're thinking when you hear our district vision, things that you think that we should be doing connected to meet that vision, would be great if you can fill it in. So let's just take the next 2 to 3 minutes on that. So we got 4 of you in here, 3 of you in here right now. I see 6 of us have joined. I would love to get some more responses from others.
Ow. Mike, I can't figure out where to put my comments.
You have to go to slide 4, and you should have access to enter your feedback. There's a little box that says add your comments here.
All I see is everybody else's comments.
So this is
Me too, Mike. Does this work if you're on an iPad? Can I still put comments on if I'm on an iPad?
Yeah.
Okay.
Lincoln again.
Okay. Got it.
You got it, Lamar?
Yeah, all right.
Okay. Okay, well, just because we had some trouble getting it, we'll just give another minute or two for everyone to be able to have a chance to communicate your thoughts on that. Yeah, these are really good, guys. Love it. Okay, just finish up those final thoughts. Okay. So one of the common themes clearly that has come up for me is this idea of foundation and providing our schools and students with tools and values for learning is something that I'm noticing. I'm noticing the elements of social emotional learning was brought up. This idea of communication, collaboration. So one of the questions that it raises for me too is, so this is what you see it to say. My wondering is, what doesn't it say that it probably should? So that's something I'm going to ask you guys to kind of linger on. So here's what our vision says to everyone, which it's clear that there's a common understanding around what we're talking about in this terms of this idea of building these strong foundations. But the one thing
Mike, I also think it's important for everyone to know as part of the conversation that we had on Friday is, your vision is something that you continuously strive for, right? And what I like here is that we did see a lot of similarities and understanding of that, but there's also like continuous opportunities to always be in the vision in the work that we do. So Mike and I were talking about that. I'm more confident in the foundation of a vision in our district. And I like how Mike put it, like what's not here. We don't have to talk about that right now. We can save that conversation for July. But like, if we want to talk about this whole concept of, you know, equity and social justice and whatever that is, do we want to kind of incorporate that somewhere in our vision? Should we have a discussion around that work? But to just think about that. But I think Mike and I are really pleased to see that we're all on the same page with this work.
Yeah.
Right, Mike? Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. So yeah, and these pieces are really important just to kind of linger on, especially when we start looking at the next couple of slides, because the conversation is going to now shift from, so we're saying we're building strong foundations in our school, in our schools. Oops, I can't see that. Hold on. Sorry. So the other question is, so what are we doing to meet the expectations of this vision? So based on what you know of our schools in our district, we're saying building all of these strong foundations, but what do we actually do? What do you see us do that says we're in a direction and on a pathway to meet that vision? So the first part of what you guys started typing in there is what does it say? My wondering is for you guys to say, so what do you think, what is it that we're doing in order to say that we're meeting this vision in your eyes? So if you can just take 2 minutes for that, and I'm gonna get us through the rest of this pretty quickly. But that last question is really important for us as well. So we said what the vision is saying, but now I want to know, what is it that you guys feel like we're doing in order to meet that vision? So if you can add a few things in there, that would be great too. Okay, just finish up those final statements. Got about 30 seconds left.
Mike, did mine come up?
Yeah. Yep. So seeing things like parent engagement, professional development, support services. We have, again, professional learning mentioned by Danielle here, and social emotional learning. That seems to be a common thread. Systems and sustainability. Thank you, Mary. Again, parent engagement, having a voice in their child's education. and community, engaging with the community, following in terms of expectations with SLTs, principals, professional learning on how to sustain those goals. Thank you, Joe. And I think that idea of sustaining has really been part of what we're really hoping to get accomplished is not that we're just putting something in place, but that it has life over the course of time. So thank you guys for including those pieces. It's really helpful knowing that some of the things that we've been really striving for are things that you're able to kind of echo now. So that's a really.
And I think I want to say the reason we're taking you guys through this activity is because come September, we want all of our schools to go through the same activity to make sure that they are in the same place that we are. I mean, like I said, I echo Mike in saying that it really means a lot that you're saying similar things that we are planning for and implementing as district leaders, that we're seeing that come out in your beliefs and expectations, which will be part of our mission. So we want this activity for all schools come September.
So where that brings us, these were a set of things that we kind of laid out as expectations for our vision, or as during our meeting on Friday, it was referred to as our core values as a district. And excuse me, one of the things that you will see in here is through collective learning of all constituents. So that is very much connected to what you guys just said and included in your comments around this professional learning, whether it's for our buildings or for our parents, and making sure that there's that collaboration amongst all of our constituents. I think that was echoed inside of that comment. We saw the idea of social emotional learning. Rigorous learning was also mentioned. Again, part of our expectations that we've included in here. Sustainability support, and that's through these strong systems of monitoring. Again, you'll see professional learning, community relationships. All of this was inside of what you guys just commented on, which is really, really positive. And it brings us to this next step, which is around the district mission statement. So if I can give you guys just just 2 minutes, I'm going to give you just read through that mission statement, and then we're going to have another set of questions if we could. Put the clock on for 2 minutes. Take another 30 seconds. We'll come back together on the next slide. Okay. So after reviewing our district vision, our mission, corresponding expectations, what does this mission say to you? What doesn't it say to you? And do you believe revisions are needed to this vision? So similar to what you were just able to do on, did I not add a pair deck? Oh no. All right, we can talk about that one. I thought I added a, oh, I did, okay. Similar to the previous previous statement on the vision. What does this vision statement say to you? Mission statement say to you? What doesn't it say? What do you believe revisions are necessary when you're thinking about our vision, our expectations, and now this mission statement? So just take 3 minutes on giving some of your thoughts on that as well. And that's on slide 8. These are great comments, guys. Keep them coming in.
Yep.
Just another 30 seconds or so. Okay. So I'm seeing an element here around, being more inclusive of parent engagement. Janine mentioned the idea of changing with the dynamics of the time that we're in. I agree that absolutely makes sense, and I do agree also that time is certainly far different than what it was just a couple of months ago. Janine, I agree with you.
Christine says the same thing.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I'm thinking, for the sake of time, it's the same, as with our goals. So Dr. Mike and I will be really using this and reading through this to sort of reshape our vision. But if there's any language between now and our next meeting that you would like to see, Mike, where can they continue to add to this?
Absolutely, yeah. I'll keep it open for as long as as long as necessary.
Can I I'm sorry. I
Yeah.
was just going to say, I know that our mission statement is basically broad spectrum, so to speak, but if we're going to be considering like working from homes, I know everybody wants to get back. Is there any way we could kind of incorporate remote learning into the statement, like more language involving that? Is that appropriate or not? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think anything could be on the table really in terms of making adjustments, and maybe it's more about how we're emphasizing the use of technology inside of the mission statement, because I'm hopeful while remote learning is teaching us a lot, I'm hopeful that we don't remain here forever. But what's not going to change is our kids' capacity to use technology and the need for our families in terms of their capacity of technology and our schools. So
yeah, I think one of the things that as you go back and look at this between now and next month, the thing that we're talking about is your mission is supposed to be what you do to achieve your vision. And there are some things that if we feel the need to rewrite this, that we're going to have to clearly define, right? So, for example, what do we believe in as a district around equity, right? What do things like, student ownership of their learning look like? Right now, I believe that there's a lot of things that we have in here. There's a lot of words, but what are we doing? And that's the thing that Dr. Mike and I were like, there's a couple of, that is the essence, I think, that's missing within the mission. There's a lot of intentions within our mission. Mm-hmm. There's some of the things that we do, right? Like, through strategic planning and delivery of professional learning opportunities, we do that. That should be in our mission because we do that. But, what are some of the things that you say that we do as part of our vision? And those should be captured within our mission as well. So I agree with what Mike was saying to you, Christine, which is, we talk about 21st century learning and use of technology, but now we're actually doing that. So what are some of the things that we do around that? Or what are our core beliefs around that, right? So we've been talking as a team, just about the need to improve upon our virtual classrooms, right? So, I'm thinking as you guys are giving us more and more feedback to redesign our mission, if that's where we're going to go, to just add some of those things.
Yeah, I completely, and you know what, and something that Joe also included in here, I think that's also really important, is that investment of student and how students get an opportunity to embed their thoughts in here, and not only for the district mission, but also at individual schools, so I think that's a really good point also, Joe, that needs to be recognized when we're creating this. What do our students also think? So yeah, I appreciate that. And the comments in here around equity and getting that equity component embedded in here, I think is really also very important. So I will keep this open, over the next few weeks, and then by the time we meet again, I'll share with you guys everything that everyone has said so that we can look at it together, and maybe perhaps start making some strategic adjustments to the mission statement to ensure that it's all completely aligned with what we're saying that we ultimately want to achieve within our vision. So, I thank you guys for including your thoughts. It is really very, very important for us, and I'm hoping that you appreciate this type of approach, because we do value it. So I'm hoping you guys enjoyed, adding some of your comments in there. So, moving on, unless does anyone else have any other comments about this before we move on? Okay. So district goals, just wanted to call out a couple of things, to your attention. Based on feedback that we had received from not only this group, but from our principals and APs, we did make a couple of adjustments, and we even made one a more recent adjustment as of this Friday, based on the conversation with the Office of Equity and Access. One of the pieces that we did take out was this 0.5% reduction in referral rates. And the only reason that was taken out, at least now, and can always be rethought, was, we have to be able to develop these plans really well first for us to really see if there's any change, and that might not necessarily happen in the given year. So we really wanted to make sure that our MTSS plan was effective before we can say that it's going to actually have this impact in this 1 year. So it's really a multi-year goal around MTSS. But anyway, just a couple of things that we did include. This whole idea of advancing equity, we wanted to say what that actually meant by disrupting patterns of disproportionality, so that we weren't having these significant differences across our subgroups, in areas such as academics, behavior, and attendance. Those are the three major components that we're going to be paying attention to through MTSS. So,
Mike, can I just say something that it was very powerful when we were going over our goals, and with the Office of Equity and Access, we were talking about advancing equity through MTSS. And when they said to us, "What do you want to do?" Mike and I have really been talking about, and we've been sharing this with you, about the disproportionality of special education referrals between our Black and Brown students in our district. And you've gone through that data with us. Some schools, the students are 3 or 4 times more likely to be recommended for special education and go to the process and actually be placed in special education, or placed in smaller learning settings. And so our concern is, when we do return to school, that there would be an influx of those students and those recommendations made, because we know they're going to be learning lags, right? Gaps in learning, and teachers coming back and having to fill those gaps, plus progress forward in terms of getting students to be on grade level and beyond as part of the expectations for our district. So the question was, well, what do you really want to do? And I said, I want to disrupt that. And that's where we got to this disrupting patterns of disproportionality that we know exist, right? We know exist in so many levels through, for whatever reason that is, but we want schools to start thinking about the work that they've been doing in implicit bias, thinking about how many of our decisions around special education referrals or extra supports for students are made from, a deficit thinking model. And, we want to convert to that strengths-based model, but that's going to mean a change in mindset, and lots of training for our district leaders and teachers. So that's really what we're trying to say through this goal.
Yeah. The next goal remained relative. We did not adjust. There was not too many comments about the ELA goal. Just a couple of things I do want to point out. This idea of data systems, there was a question from a couple of you during our last meeting around what do we really mean about data systems? And I think this is multi-leveled. I think this is data systems, thinking about it through the lens of the district, and how we're really solidifying the ways that we're checking to see how children are growing over the course of the year, and ensuring that that's giving us the best information possible to make decisions about our kids. This connects very much so to the school leadership goal. We can't have an MTSS plan unless we're sure we have good data coming back. So for us, it's really identifying all of the data tools that we have and organizing them so that we're getting the information we need to make better decisions for our kids. So just to give a little bit of clarity, that's just so you know what we're talking about when we see data systems. That's really what it is. Organizing information so that we can make better decisions to support all children, but in particularly to support those children that need those additional supports, whether that's enrichment or remediation. So just to give you a little clarity on what that data system part meant. Also with our math, There was a question about data systems is in here as well. We feel it's really important, both ELA and math, for that to be the case. And there was also a question around what is a learning laboratory. So I want to just give a little clarity on what a learning laboratory school is. So we've had a number of schools over the past couple of years engage in training with Bank Street College for mathematics in the early childhood classrooms. And we've also had all of our schools participate in Algebra for All training with a series of coaching visits for our schools from a company called Generation Ready at the time, and that's who was focused on our schools, and receiving additional support from Algebra for All over the course of the last 2 years. So those learning lab schools are basically schools that are going to kind of serve as places where our teachers and administrators can go to continue to learn how to implement some of these strategies that they've been engaging in over the past couple of years. Sometimes when you're in your own classroom, you don't get to see things as much as you would looking at it from the vantage point of someone else doing the instructing. So it's a way for us to continue to learn and grow from one another to support our kids. So the math goal has not changed as of yet, but certainly as more feedback comes in, we'll make those adjustments for when this becomes a finalized goal for next year. The systems of social emotional learning, and all of these goals, by the way, I just want to make sure that everyone knows, have been realigned to the tenets from New York State, and we've connected them in that way. So the revised social emotional learning goal, pretty much each of you commented on this one in terms of the importance level of creating our systems of support for the start of the school year. And I couldn't agree with you more. I think this is really uncharted territory for our kids, for our families, for our teachers and staff, administrators, and our entire community is definitely faced with things that we never would have thought would be the case. So we've adjusted this goal a little bit. And included the idea of social emotional learning and restorative practices, resulting in schools developing, implementing, and monitoring a school-wide tiered counseling plan, and a reduction in disproportional suspension rates across middle schools. Now, this last part we're going to have to still work on. I'm not sure if we're still in remote learning for an extended period of time, suspension rates are not going to be what they were anyhow. But the school counseling plan is really important for a number of reasons. One, New York State has put into state law that all schools have a counseling plan. And what we are trying to do here is connect it with the MTSS work, that we have a tiered counseling plan to support the needs of our kids and staff and families with what they need in terms of coming back to school in September. There's going to be a variety of things that we have to deal with, but we're asking schools to do a little bit of front loading. Now, when we say counseling plan, it's going to be spearheaded by our counselors, but developed as a school plan in terms of how social emotional learning is going to be taught, what other ways that we're going to be engaging in it, whether that's through mindfulness, a specific school program. But this goal has changed in that respect, where we've taken out chronic absenteeism, and I'll show you where we put it in a minute. But linking this more to the importance of having a very clear plan with how we're going to support our kids, excuse me, and our communities with social emotional learning come the fall. So that's a big shift there that we've made in this goal. And parent engagement, we've also made a little adjustment. And this is not solidified by any stretch, so we really welcome your feedback here too. But we were struggling with the results and as I was thinking about some of the feedback that was coming back and forth, I said this may be a good place for us to embed this chronic absenteeism component and engagement rates, because it's directly connected to how we're communicating with our families. So one of the questions that came up was around what this diversifying of communication means. And I think what we've learned is that using the technology has really helped enhance the number of people that have been communicating, that we've been able to communicate with in a distance fashion. So we've kind of included in here the diversifying of communication systems, including the use of technology to deepen our engagement and empower parent communities. And we feel like this will help support improved chronic absenteeism and engagement rates for our kids. Now, the last two goals, these were some of the questions, and Janine, Dr. Werner, this would be a great place for, just in terms of feedback moving forward with the high school goals. A couple of questions that came up is, what will be used in order to improve pedagogical practices? What will make the students excited about graduating within 4 years? A couple of the questions that were raised during our last meeting. And is my understanding this goal is around region scores? How will this work since there are no June regions? And what is the evidence used by I'm going to mispronounce it, I guess it's Sears, 108, and what are the factors used for readiness, just as a feedback piece for our high school component. And that brings us to this last part, is kind of, and an activity you can do in your schools too. So here's what, so what, now what. So we went through these things. What is it that we learned? What is it? What can we infer from what we learned and from the so what, and now what do we do about it? It's kind of a very simple organizer that you guys can use in your schools. But in terms of questions, anything that was raised inside of those goals that we just provided to you that you think is important for us to kind of echo, and I'm going to unshare my screen so we can come back together in the Teams room. Okay. And feel free to add anything in the chat, or you can unmute any comments that you have about the goals, the revisions, anything else that you think should have been thought through, and we will certainly take those into account.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Mike. I think this was, well, thank you, Jim. This was a great activity. I don't know how you guys agree, but we actually want to ask our schools to go through something very similar. And like I said, we can continuously revisit this, because there's a lot of different things we're going to talk about. I also want to say that things have changed, and they change moment by moment. Just 12 hours ago, there was conversation that there wasn't an opportunity for building walkthroughs, and now I just got a screenshot of an updated form that does allow for that. So I'm going to have the conversation with principals just around building walkthroughs and presenting that to SLTs. However, I do stand behind and respect principals that don't want to have that many people in the building at the same time. And I do believe if we're working with the path and asking for updated square footage of the school, that can be accomplished without bringing 15 people together to walk through a building. Not to say that that can't be done later on in the summer, but like I had said, we do want to maintain the safety of buildings and the safety of people gathering in buildings, and make sure that if we're going to have large groups, it's something that's purposeful and meaningful and with a lens in mind, and not just looking at the school. So we're going to be working with our principals on how to organize and plan for that and lead through that as well. So something to think about, and we really do ask that you spend some time looking at our mission and vision and continuing to give us feedback, as well as our goals. But as our goals change every year and evolve every year, we know that. But our mission and vision is really something that should stay. I believe that we're a really strong DLT, and all the more reason why, just as we have worked together to roll out, our expectations for the district, it would be really nice for us to be able to start the year very strong in explaining this work to our schools, supporting it as a DLT, but then additionally, helping our SLTs engage in the same process, because they have not done that in a while. Okay, so at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Werner. I don't know if you have any updates, but Janine, if there's one thing that you can do is, take our goals back to Elaine and really show her and work with her, unpack with her the kind of feedback loops that we've been doing, and just making sure that she understands, the other non-high school goals to make sure that there's anything she would like to add for alignment, if that's possible.
You're muted, Janine.
You're muted, Janine. Yeah.
I think by now I'd be used to that. So hi, everybody. It's still morning, so good morning. Yeah, changes are coming fast and furiously, as they are for everybody. So just a couple of things. One is Regents waivers. Not much has changed. I'll talk about that a little bit. What's happening for summer school and graduation decisions. So for Regents waivers, the state is saying it's really not much of a change, but Regents exams were a way to check proficiency and to determine proficiency in a certain area, of course. And because now there is a waiver, they have to demonstrate their proficiency in the entire Regents area, right? So most of the high schools are divided up into semesters. So 2 semesters of a course would equal, and a passing grade would equal proficiency. So if students are missing a piece of a sequence, then they have to be programmed, or they should be programmed for summer school in order to fulfill those pieces that they're missing and pass so that they can attain the waiver. So, you know, it's not like in some schools that are annualized. In schools like the DOE schools, most of us are semester or trimester based. So they have to show proficiency in the entire year or the entire sequence in order to gain that waiver. So that's one thing. For summer school, there's really 2 ways that we can look at it. One is students who get an NX. So for high school, students get a numeric or an alpha grade if they pass. If they don't pass, they can get an NX, which means that the course is in progress. And students will have until well into the fall semester to make up that NX. So in summer school, students will be programmed for what they need to repair that NX. And then when they're done, they can go. So it's not like they have to be in summer school for 6 weeks, as opposed to students who are in summer school for things that they have previously failed. So for those students, they're going to be in for the duration. For students getting NXs, they are going to be in for the time that they need. So we've been doing action plans in anticipation of this, so that whoever gets the student in summer knows what it is the student needs to do. The DOE since then has asked for teachers to put in like copious codes so that the teacher getting them for summer school knows the standards that they need to attain in order to change that NX to a passing grade. And then finally, graduation. As you know, in-person graduations are only possible with students with crowds of 150. That was the state, that was Cuomo's guidance. DOE, we still can't do them, but they are allowing drive-through graduations for schools that want to opt to do that. And then they have to apply for permission if that's what the school wants to do. So those are the 3 things that are probably most important right now. So
Okay.
if anyone has questions or comments, I'll do my best to address.
Quick clarification, Janine. When you mean if they fail a marking period or the semester?
So yeah, so it's when they get credit. So for most DOE high schools, they're on a semester-based program. So they'll get, let's say, 1 credit in the fall and 1 credit in the spring, which is different from marking periods. It's what goes on the transcript that determines whether they've passed or failed.
Got it. Thank you.
We usually call those terms, like term 1 and term 2.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, any other questions, guys? Any new business? All right, good meeting, good meeting. Lots to talk about. I'm really excited. So I am glad that I will see all of you next month.
Motion.
Oh, wow.
Was that Janet?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, no, I know.
Okay.
I need a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I thought
I
that.
motion be adjourned.
Wait, who motioned?
I guess Charlene.
Arlene, and I need a second.
I'll
I'll
second.
second.
So Charlene and Joe, Joe.
Everybody seconded.
I third it.
All right, guys. So I'm sure, like Christina and Laura, I'm going to see you guys tonight, right? And then Joe, I'm sure I'll speak to you this week, and everyone else have.
What's the time meeting? 6 or 6:30? I'm so confused.
It's 6:30, isn't it?
6:30.
6:30.
Thank you, Esther. I wait for my text, my reminder text.
Okay.
All right. So I'll see some of you later, and some of you will speak during the week, and everyone else, I will see you next month at our DLT meeting. Lamar, if you have time, I want to talk to you right now, if that's possible. I'm going to call you. See there?
Yes, okay, no problem.
I'll call you.
Okay, everyone enjoy the rest of the day.
Wait.
Thank you, everyone.
What day is the July meeting? 'Cause I came in late.
It is, hold on, let me just
13th.
check.
The
July
13th at 10:30.
10:30. All right, thanks, everyone.
Bye,
All right, enjoy the
everyone.
day,
Take
guys.
care.
Bye.
See you next month.
We'd love to see